Hello and welcome back to the DFS Premier League show brought to you by VIP-bet.com. I'm your host Kevin DeVries. Joining me as always in the box below me is my good friend and partner in crime, Rob Langevin. Rob, before we get into this too far, first of all, we are coming to you guys live. So hello to everybody watching already, and but you can also watch it later. So hello to those people as well. Rob, an interesting thing going on right now in fantasy sports on the whole is the value of defenders. We've talked a little bit, you and I, off air, about how in the FPL game they way improved the values of defenders. They noticed how impactful they could be, raised all of their prices. In the DFS game, there's a very wide spread. You know, you can get as high up as 7, like where Milner and that group were last season, down to the mid-2s to find useful players. What should people's strategy be in this format, especially considering clean sheets don't tend to get you that many points?
Yeah, well, the key thing with defenders is always keep an eye on the slate. The slate is going to dictate what you are able to do with your defenders. And like you said, the official game honors or rewards defenders better. The price metric's a little bit different for the official game and DFS, obviously. But the clean sheet merit is basically what allows the defenders in the official game to be at the price they are and basically to take the crapshoot for the clean sheet, home run hit. In DFS, the reward isn't that great. The point to gain are only +3 for defenders. So the prices, like you mentioned, usually like the James Milners, the Marcus Alonsos, the Benjamin Mendy's, players that are heavily involved in the offensive flow, have a lot of crosses, sometimes on occasion like Milner's stake, and sometimes Charlie Daniels a couple years ago, they do take penalty kicks. So that is an attribute that allows them to bolster their price in some ways. So basically, my theory on looking at defenders is you're basically dictating your lineup based on the slate. Like take the slate we have right now, the slate we're going to talk about. There's 7 games on this slate. Yeah. This allows you to basically have one defender that is probably more of a popular choice, but with 7 games, it probably won't be as popular as other slates because of the striated games and the amount of players that are available to be selected. And then the other defender is probably your differential play, your low-end guy that either has a great matchup and can monopolize on something like that, or something that you intangibly know about a defense or an opposing defense that you can possibly take an advantage of from a defensive standpoint. That person going forward, and let's not kid ourselves. A lot of defensive picks, they do have a lot of luck behind it because a lot of them are swing and miss, or if an obtuse guy scores and you roster him, pretty much you're probably going to cash, because if that player is owned in less than, say, 5% of leagues, you're probably going to move up the ranks, because if you have a lower priced defender on your roster, he's basically a fill-in for your heavy hitters, your big guns, like say City on this slate. There's a lot of talk that a lot of people are trying to triple up this week on City, and then basically going the penny pinch route with defenders and a midfielder and that way to fill out their lineup. So I mean, defenders that are coming on the cheap are always good as long as you hit on the right ones, and it's hard to do sometimes, especially when there's 14 teams to select from.
Yeah, it's definitely a heavy slate, so we're not going to waste too much of your time. We'll just jump right into it. I'll lead in here talking about Huddersfield versus Burnley. The first person I want to highlight, if you listen to anything I talk about ever, it's probably about my love for Robbie Brady. I'm not just talking about on shows. My personal life, like, girls are leaving me left and right because as soon as things get intimate, I start talking about Robbie Brady, and that's just very uncomfortable for everybody. But
weird.
That's not that. Yeah, it's pretty weird. Robbie Brady, 6,500. It is the Robbie Brady show at Burnley right now. He has the most accurate crosses in the league. He's top 5 in chances created. He has taken every corner for Burnley this season. All of those give you cross points, of course. And he has the highest percentage of chances created at any club in the Premier League right now. Of his team's chances. So Robbie Brady, definitely a person that you want to get into your team. Huddersfield have not been able to keep a clean sheet of late after starting the season very well. My dislike, and this pains me, is going to be Steve Mooney. Just because I was such a fan of his at the beginning of the season. Obviously, that 2-goal performance to start the year was incredible. 6,200 in price. He was already on a 3-match scoreless streak before missing last week's match. Now he's hurt, probably going to miss this week's match. Even if he does play, Burnley very good defensively at home at Turf Moor. It makes Depoitre a really interesting option at 4,800. If you don't believe in this Burnley defense, that makes him a really interesting option at 4,800 as a starting forward. But I happen to like the Burnley defense. But anyway, Mounier, unfortunately, the guy that I think gets the short stick here. I'm gonna go Burnley 1-0.
Yeah, that's a good shot. I don't think there's many goals. The over under on the I did check the betting lines for a lot of these games this week. It's just over 1.5 goals total for the game.
Yeah.
So a 1-0 game is definitely an optimistic thing. This looks like one of those games where, like I just mentioned, you can look for like a cheap defender. Basically, anybody under 4,500 to me qualifies as a cheap defender. So. There's a lot of options. Look at Stephen Ward, plays a lot of minutes, does a lot of things intangible for Burnley that he does right. I do favor Burnley in this squad, and I'm going to agree with Kevin that they probably get the one tally that makes a difference in this game and win 1-0.
Yep. So we are simpatico on that. Now you're going to talk to us about Bournemouth, Everton, two teams that, from a fantasy perspective, have been pretty disappointing this year. Yeah. Are you thinking it'll be an uptick for at least one of them?
Yeah, I mean. This is the kind of game where if not now, when for Everton. I mentioned the joke yesterday and it got you a chuckle, so I'll say it again because it's a different show. The toffees have gone stale a little bit, from this game, I'm looking to monopolize on one thing or exploit one thing for Bournemouth. What we saw last week from the Brighton offense is Bournemouth cannot defend set pieces through the air. Brighton scored 2 goals on set pieces that Bournemouth just could not defend. I'm looking at guys who are good in the air for Everton. I'm looking at probably Michael Keane and Ashley Williams on defense. This is the cheap entry into my defense. I'm not investing a lot in this game because there's too many other valuable parts from other games that you want to get in your roster. So look on the cheap side. Ashley Williams 3,300, Michael Keane similarly priced. That you're not gonna be heavily involved. The other guy I kind of like in this game is because it has something to do with a lot of the set pieces that Bournemouth are sustainable to. Is Gylfi Sigurdsson at 8,400. The only reason I don't really love him is because how many goals is Everton really going to score? And at 8,400, you kind of need Gylfi to take every set piece, be involved in every corner kick, basically get on the tally sheet in some way for him to warrant 8,400 because of the guys on this slate that are cheaper, like David Silva. City is expected to score 3 goals. Everton is expected to score 1.5. So I mean, from that standpoint, you're kind of hard-pressed to find a spot for a guy like Gylfi Sigurdsson at 8,400. And in a couple games when I talk about the United game, he's very similar to another player at the same price point for the United team. Mm-hmm. So 8,400 for a midfielder in this game is not the greatest option because of the expected goal output for this game. On the dislikes, basically anybody who plays in the front 6/7 for Bournemouth, there's just no value there.
Yeah.
The max they're probably going to score is maybe 12 points. They're not going to be like a stalwart for you that you're like one of your first people picked that you can actually rely on. Josh King's been very disappointing. Basically, they have a whole bunch of Harry Arter, Mark Pugh. They're all also Rands when it comes to DFS options. They're good and sustainable options. They'll get you between 6 and 9 points in a game, but that's basically what you're paying
no
for. That's
upside.
what their price is. Yeah, that's what their price is. They're priced at between 5 and 4 in the low 4s for a reason, because they're just consistently like tapioca. They look good on paper, but they're not really going to do much for you. Score wise, I'm going to say it's 2-1 Everton.
Yeah, two things worth pointing out. First of all, I thought your Sigurdsson case was a really good one. If you've watched many Everton matches, it seems like his set pieces are the only time they actually look dangerous. And secondly, Everton are really susceptible down the flanks. They're playing a very compact style right now, which allows lots of motion up and down the wings. Which, while unless Stanislas gets the start, which he probably won't because he played a lot in the midweek, the winger's not that great at Bournemouth anyway. But Daniels and Adam Smith, if you're looking for a counter, if you're thinking, ooh, maybe Everton aren't as good as people may think, Adams and Smith could get a lot of sorry, I keep saying Charlie Adams. Charlie Daniels and Adam Smith should have a lot of play on either one of those wings. I think this is just going to kind of be a disappointing 1-1 where the people that you need to score don't.
Yeah. I
mean, it might be your Ashley Williams call, like something weird, like a center back just.
But guys who aren't owned are good for DFS because they're not really, they're not taking away from players that you have a permanent investment in, like City guys, like Liverpool guys. Like Chelsea players. So.
Yeah, it's not actively hurting you. It's just not exciting.
It's an aw shucks thing more than why didn't I play him instead of?
Right. Okay, I'm going to talk to you guys now about this Manchester City versus Crystal Palace match. I was going to go with Sergio Aguero. He is crazy high priced. He will probably be the highest owned player this week. I do not want to panic people. I will preface this by saying I only saw it one place, but saw a rumor that he picked up a knock in training today. Cannot confirm that. One source does not equal verification. But it was enough for me to be a little bit squeamish and talk to you guys about David Silva instead. If Aguero is fit and starts, he continues to be a must-own. But I'll talk to you about David Silva instead. Only 7,700. He has the most chances created in the Premier League this season. He's second in assists, but can still be had for the low price of 7,700. It's like a discount type deal going on over here. I don't know what that's all about. He's going up against Crystal Palace, who have... How many clean sheets do you think they have this year, Rob?
0.
Oh, how many goals do you think Palace have scored this year?
0.
Oh, yep. Both of those things. So not only can David Silva get forward, but he doesn't really have to worry about tracking back much because Palace have not offered much this season, which is why I love me some David Silva this week at 7,700. So who do I hate? Pretty much every Crystal Palace defender. Just all of them. You know what? I won't limit it to that. Every Crystal Palace player. Their defense has been awful, as we mentioned. They have not scored a goal, which we also mentioned. They're up against City, who, conversely, have the fewest goals allowed and the most goals scored. So, it's like a... trying to think of a good analogy here. It's like a rock meeting an egg and seeing which one will win if you throw them together. It's going to be the Rock. As you mentioned, people talking already about stacking City. I think that's a wise choice. Not only are the attacking players good, as we mentioned, but again, only 2 goals conceded this season thus far. The City guys are expensive defensively. Mendy and Walker, obviously very expensive. Walker at 5,500, a little more affordable, but also a little bit less exciting when it comes to the crossing that Benjamin Mendy can provide. But yeah, you want City. You want 2+ at least City players in your lineup this week. I'd recommend Silva and Aguero if they're both fit, but you can go further down the spectrum if you'd like. Also, it will be interesting to see who plays out wide for them, considering all of their wingers played midweek. So not really sure how that's going to break down. But yeah, City, definitely the way you want to go here. I do think Crystal Palace could get off the schneid here just because they've actually created a fair amount of chances. They just haven't gone in. Ederson, still dealing with his head injury and stuff. I don't know. I'm going to say 3-1 City, but it could just as easily be 3-0 or 4-0 or worse.
Yeah, the biggest question for this game is how many City players can you get in your team is the thing. I think two is a must. The problem with that is, City's going to score. City's definitely going to score. They're not going to sit on their hands and not score in this game. The big hope and pray is that the guys that you actually selected are involved in the scoring of that. So if you're going balls out and you're going De Bruyne, Aguero, and Silva, that's a big investment. That's almost that's $25,000, almost $30,000 that you're investing. So basically you're penny pinching the rest of the way. So you basically are hoping that City gets 4 goals. And between the goal and the assist, those guys are probably in the 5 to 7 range in goals and assists plus, because you want that accumulation of points. Because there's probably not many people that are going to stack the 3 City lineups like that with the 3-headed monster and then go penny pinching. Everybody's going to own Aguero, so that there's probably going to be no differential there. But the secondary and tertiary value of having De Bruyne and Silva on that are a value. I'm trying to stay. I think I'm staying away from City defense here. I think that this game flow is going to be all up front and not from the back. I think last week when we saw them play against Watford, the defense got involved. Otamendi got a goal, but it was on a corner or a set piece. But I don't think that's going to happen this week. I think this game's going to be out of hand early. Crystal Palace doesn't have anything going for them defensively that can stop City. I'm saying it's going to be 4-0. I don't think Palace gets anywhere near the scoreboard. Yeah,
entirely possible that it turns out that messily. Speaking of teams that can't score, like Crystal Palace, in steps Southampton. Just can't really find the back of the net. Gabbiadini's not doing it. Although Charlie Austin sounds like will be available for selection. Whether or not he gets the start will be interesting. But going up against the other team with the fewest conceded goals, 2 thus far, United with the most clean sheets, is there any hope for Southampton here?
I don't see any here. I know that this game will be tough. This is going to be a grinded out game. I think Southampton has enough defensive moxie that they'll stay in this game and not let it be blown out. And that's why I'm kind of fading the United players this week, except for ones that may be differentials. There's guys that stick out. The one guy I don't like this week, I mentioned him before. I kind of teased him a little bit when I was talking about Gylfi Sigurdsson. That's Henry Mkhitaryan at 8,400. Based on the prices and the goal expectations of the City match and the Liverpool match, I don't know how anybody can firmly invest $8,400 in Henrik Mkhitaryan. The guy doesn't take all the set pieces. He doesn't do all the corner kicks, so that takes away from his his point accumulation. Yes, he's involved in tons of assists, but there's not expected to be a lot of goals in this game. So I think I'd rather save the $700 and invest in a second City player like David Silva than risk running Henrik Mkhitaryan out and then basically blanking. Because if he's not involved in all the stuff, I don't want anything to do with him. The guy I love in this game, it's more because Marcus Rashford picked up a knock midweek, and that's Anthony Martial. He's finally going to get a game from the beginning at 7,300. I don't think people are completely gonna be putting the collar on him this week, because I think they'll play either the Lukaku game, the Aguero game, and the forward spot with the only 2 spots, and then maybe the utility spot is a limited spot because there's so many good investments up there. You have Morata, you have the Liverpool players, Firmino, Aguero, and I think the people are going to be sleeping on Anthony Martial coming out of the gate. He's usually a change of pace player and usually monopolizes on that, but so just change the pace from minute 1 instead of minute 70. At 7,300, he has the goal scoring ability. He's a great finisher. Yeah. I think people are going to be sleeping on him. I don't think that he'll be rostered like heavily, but I think that there's a little meat on the bone there that you could probably strike a little gold there. This game is going to be not a goal fest, but if there's going to be goals, I think United win it 2-0.
Yeah, I'm not very optimistic about Southampton, although Van Dijk did score for their U23s earlier this week, which is the next step towards him returning to the 4. Completely agree on your Martial call. I'm less optimistic that he gets the start, but if he does, I'd say I'm even more optimistic that he could do some real damage. When you mentioned he was a good finisher, he is actually a striker. They've just pushed him out wide ever since they brought in Ibrahimovic and then replaced Ibrahimovic with Lukaku. If he does play, very, very good goal scorer and just silky skills for days. Agree. I just don't know where a Southampton goal is supposed to come from in a match like this against the defense as strong as United's. Yeah, I'm going to go 2-0 as well. I think that sounds good. But there's every chance that once the 70th minute starts, United just start that churn that we've seen multiple weeks this season, where it's a 1-0 match going into 70th minute, and by the 80th minute, it's already 3 or 4. So yeah, do not be surprised.
They have 11 goals after the 60th minute in all competitions this year so far.
Yep.
11 goals. So
makes sense, yeah. Once their opponents tire, they just tear people up. Yeah. On to me talking about Chelsea and Stoke. To be honest, not really a big fan of this matchup on the whole. For my I'll do Alvaro Morata. And that's largely just because of price to ability. Yeah. The fact that he's only 8,600 is really surprising this week. He is 10th in price this week, but is top 5 in goals scored. And not every team is on this slate this week. So why he's priced this low, I don't really understand. Stoke are pretty resolutely middle of the pack when it comes to defense. So while I think it's possible Morata scores 1, I'm not really thinking it'll be one of those one player gets 2-3 goals kind of matches. But of all of them, that's the one that stuck out, was weirdly how low his price is compared to his competitors in that goal race. Another sneaky one I'm not buying in this week, but it could give us a lot of interesting information for weeks going forward, is Choupo-Moting, because he showed up big against United, who at the time obviously had the best defense in the league. Now he's going up against Chelsea. If he scores this week, you can tuck him away into that big game player mold, which could make him a fantastic differential later on in the season. Because when he'd be up against big defenses that aren't these two, that aren't United and Chelsea, if he's up against City, if they keep up their defensive work rate, if he's up against Tottenham, or if Everton figure out their stuff, all of a sudden a lot of people would probably be leaning away because of the difficulty of those fixtures, but you could know this guy actually comes to play when it's against better opposition. So yeah, not buying in on him this week myself, but definitely one to keep an eye on for future reference. My dislike is going to be Willian at 7,400. He's just not crossing the ball the way he used to. Part of that is that he's not taking set pieces, which you were talking about Mkhitaryan as well. Just not that big a factor in that capacity anymore. He was rested midweek, which a lot of Chelsea players were not. So it is likely he gets the start, but just worth knowing that while that is a big issue this week, is who's going to get the start, although it's obviously much less of an issue in DFS because you can set your lineup after you know the official team lineups. Just because he's going to get the start, which I'm fairly certain he will, does not mean he's going to be a great fantasy option. And so, Willian's right in that price range you're talking about. We're talking about Willians. David Silva is only 77. That's the group we're talking in, but Willian has somehow found his way into this gap. This is not 2015-16. Willian is not that player anymore and shouldn't be respected as such. Yeah. Did I just say not to respect him? I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm going to go Chelsea 2-1. I'll say Stoke get one. Chelsea have conceded weird goals this season.
Yeah, they have. The thing with the Chelsea pricing you mentioned with Morata being 8,600. To me, this game resonates. Remember a couple games ago when Stoke played United and they played them tough and Stoke was home. Yeah. That to me resonates a lot with the pricing here. Hazard is 10,100. You don't want anything to do with that. I know he's in the top 6 of high price guys. You don't want anything to do with that. Fabregas at 7,100 could be an interesting play. It all depends on the pace of the game. And I like your call for Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting. BGH is going to be his new nickname. Big Game Hunter. His nickname. Score wise, I think Chelsea keep them clean. I don't think Stoke. I don't think Stoke lucks out here. I think they got beefed up for the United game. Kind of got pumped up. I don't think they're going to do the same against Chelsea here. It's going to be 2-0. I think it's 2-0 is a good call.
Fair enough. And as we said, clean sheets don't really get you that many points anyway.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Really,
and this is not one of those games where you're looking for a defensive player unless you're getting a bargain or you think you're being cheeky. When we get to my team, I'm kind of being cheeky.
Love it. All right, for Watford versus Swansea, Watford started really hot, got obviously crazy undone by City last week, which is pretty contrasting to Swansea, who had not started well, had a great draw in their eyes against Tottenham last week. Which team do you think will get the better at the weekend?
Can both teams score negative goals in this game? No, I'm kidding.
Difficult.
But this is the game I'm looking at for if I'm looking to select a goalkeeper. This is the goalkeeper game for me. Fabianski at 5,000, Gomis at 4,600. The prices on the slate for goalkeepers are a little inflated because of the matchups that City, that Chelsea, that United, that Liverpool have. Those goaltenders are way overpriced. You're not spending over $5,400 for a goalie on this slate. I'm sorry, just don't do it. Ignore the fact that your mom told you to do it or your teacher from school told you to do it. Don't do it.
If they jumped off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge?
No. Depending on how the bridge is. No. 5,000 is the max you should pay for a goalie. Fabianski has saves in 8 and 7 in his last 2 games. Decent returns. Swansea's playing okay defensively. It's kind of like a bend, don't break kind of system. Gomis is a great goalie. It's just that Watford's defense has kind of been in and out. They're kind of battling some health issues. Guys have been bouncing around. He's got Holobas in front of him, hacking away like he's good at. But this game is going to be kind of boring. I think this is the 1-1 game on the slate. But for my dislike, basically, remember what I said about Bournemouth? This is the same kind of thing I'm thinking about for Watford. They just don't have enough intrinsic players that are going to, monopolize on the time that they're playing. They have a lot of 6-point to 9-point players that just are moderately priced for a reason because that's all the return that they're going to give you. Are you going to really bank on Richarlison returning to form from week 2 of the season? Probably not. And even if he does, his potential is probably maxed out by like a 13-point game, which is not really what you want. You kind of want to hit a home run at somebody in that price range. Yeah. And I don't think Richarlison against a Swansea defense is going to be that guy. Like I said, I think this game's 1-1.
Yeah, Decore, who I just highlighted briefly there, is interesting at 3,000. He's filled that Capu role, including the random goals from nowhere. If you're looking for a low price punt, if you're trying to get that like Aguero, Silva, KDB triple header, you're gonna need somebody like Decore. It's super cheap, but you mentioned home run swinging. That's what it is. You're gonna miss 7 or 8 times out of 10 on a player like Decore. But if you hit it the week you get it, could be an interesting option. I'm going to go 0-0. I'm not really impressed by either of these attacks in particular. Gray and Deeney.
Yeah, like I said, I like this game from the goalie standpoint. You can't really go wrong. Watford takes enough shots on goal to keep it interesting. Fabianski won't be bored. And Gomis is a good enough goalie. Swansea will have enough chances that you'll probably get a couple save metrics and, maybe a double clean sheet both ways. I'm going to double up, take 2 goalies. One is my utility and one is my goalkeeper.
I guess what we're really advising is to not watch that match. It will not be very exciting. Wrapping up with Liverpool versus Leicester here. My start here is going to be Jamie Vardy at 5,900. It is more likely that he plays than he doesn't. And if he does, this is going to be one of the best values of this entire season. He's 10th in price. In this match, he's 10th under loads of other Liverpool players. He is behind Mahrez from his own team as well. But like Liverpool's fourth striker, Dominic Solanke, is higher up than Jamie Vardy. I understand they may be a little worried about the leg, but it's like I said, it's more likely that he plays, and if he does, it's going to be nuts. Liverpool's defense has conceded 10 goals in their last 5 outings, including 2 against this Leicester team on Wednesday. So I don't really know why this is as crazy as it is. Oh, and Vardy takes penalties for Leicester. So if that happens, which it may be because we're about to elaborate on Liverpool's defense, that's just basically free points for you. My dislike, inherently, is Liverpool defenders. Out of the press conference today, reports that both Lovren and Matip have picked up injuries. Now, I know what you're thinking. I don't really care about either of them because they're not really good. Stop and think about who's on the bench then. Yeah. If those two are starting every week. If I had to guess, I'm going to say Ragnar Klavan and Joe Gomez will be the center back pairing for Liverpool this weekend, just because Joe Gomez did play center back when he debuted, was that 2 years ago before his injury? Yeah. That is not a very inspiring pair to go up against Jamie Vardy and Kelechi Iheanacho, which is arguably behind Aguero and Jesus, the fastest striker pairing in the Premier League right now. So I am not optimistic about this Liverpool defense. I already mentioned the 10 goals conceded in their last 4 matches in all comps. This is not a game I want to play. If Vardy starts, I am all on the Bordy train and all off the Liverpool train defensively, because Leicester are no great shakes at the back either. I think this is either going to be a really exciting match, or it's going to be one of those ones that should have been exciting and just kind of neutralize us. I'm going to go for the former. I'm going to go 3-2 to Liverpool.
Yeah, this game is going to be one of the best goal-scoring back and forth games, I think. I think the City game will have more goals, maybe, but I think this game, from a standpoint of both teams actually being on the score sheet and basically maximizing your DFS potential for having players from Leicester and players from Liverpool, could be a great asset for your DFS lineup. I kind of went a little bit when we get into our teams. We'll just jump right into my team. I think the score is going to be 3-2. Like you said, I think there's going to be goals. I can't even tell you who's going to have 3, who's going to have 2, because Liverpool's defense is just so shoddy, and Leicester is just no bargain either that they're going to keep anybody off the board.
Yeah.
But jumping right into my team, I kind of staying with the Leicester-Liverpool game. I think that the way that Liverpool shoots on goal, they have I think the 3rd most shots on goal in the Premier League. I'm going with Kasper Schmeichel and goal at 4,300. Yeah. I'm not spending over the max what I just said for goalies. And Kasper Schmeichel, he's a good enough goalie that he's going to parry away enough to get you some save points. On defense, this is where I kind of went a little cheeky. Remember I said I didn't like the Stoke-Chelsea game for defenders? I went Cesar Azpilicueta at 4,100. I think that somebody is going to get involved defensively for that with no David Luiz. Somebody's going to have to be a little bit more forthright from the defense, and I think it's going to be Azpilicueta. My other defender is Ashley Williams from Everton. At 3,300, he is my punt defender. I mentioned that Bournemouth is awful in the air. He's a big dude, likes to head the ball. Sure, you're on my team. Midfield, I have Robbie Brady at 6,500, and I paired him up with Roberto Firmino at 8,000. I like Firmino because he's kind of like an out-of-position play. You're getting the striker capabilities at a midfield spot at a cheaper rate than a striker price. He's cheaper than Morata by 600. And my forwards, got to go with Aguero here. He's the one staple item you need this week. Milk, eggs, bread, Aguero. That's the rule this week. At 11,000, he's got to be had. My second forward, I kind of went a little different than Kevin. Kevin's all over the Vardy train. I have Kelechi Iheanacho at 4,400 here. I'm a little worried that with Vardy's groin injury that he may not play too much. Maybe. I was a little tempted. When I made this lineup, the news was more prominent. Now the news is a little bit later in the week. He's getting closer to fitness. He'll probably play. But at 4,400, Kelechi Iheanacho is a good punt play.
And even if Vardy starts, Iheanacho will probably play with him.
Absolutely. And, there's a sneaky play that I like at 3,900 this week, depending on if he plays. So if Iheanacho doesn't play or doesn't start, I could downshift to Jordan Ibe at 3,900 for Bournemouth, which is probably the value of the week if he does get the start at 3,900. And then my utility is David Silva, 7,700. If there's a better buy on the slate this week, if David Silva starts, I don't see it. 7,700 is a bargain for David Silva. Most chances created, like Kevin said. City's going to run up the score in this, and he's going to be involved in at least 2 to 3 goals.
Completely agree with you there. From the back for me, you're going to see a lot of familiar names on this list. At the back for me, Lucas Fabianski at 5,000. Already mentioned how good he's been. Most saves in the Premier League this season thus far with 24. And what is it? 3 clean sheets in his first 5 matches, I guess so.
Yeah.
All on board that Fabianski train. I mentioned Charlie Daniels. Well, I called him Charlie Adam, but now I'll call him Charlie Daniels. Should get a lot of run, as I mentioned, down the flanks against Everton, where they tend to be compact. Should offer a lot of touches on the wing for Daniels, which means crosses, which means fouls drawn, which means chances created, potential assists and goals, all on that Charlie Daniels hype train. And I usually go 2 cheap defenders, but this week I really, kind of like we talked about in the intro, sometimes it's really interesting to go high-low, and that's what I've done here with my defense. My low is Phil Jones. Like I said, United, very, very good defense. Could keep Stoke out of this one. Maybe not, but if they do, clean sheet points. Hooray, that's like 4 points. It's meaningless now. But in midfield, going with David Silva. We both talked about him ad infinitum, but just an amazing player. I still have Emre Can in my team at 4,000. It sounded like his injury is less bad than the 2 behind him, which could mean he has to start in defensive midfield. Could be pressed into action as a center back if he starts, which would be problematic. But I talked about him last week, did get an assist. If he starts at 4,000, he's a really, really interesting play. If not less so, would probably downshift to Decore if he does not get the start. Up front, I went just big guns for days. Aguero and Lukaku, both of them lead the league in shots on target. Oh, that's not true. I made that up. Goals. They both lead the league in goals, although Lukaku is top with the shots on target. So yeah, I'm just rolling out the 2 heavy hitters. They're going to be heavily owned. They're going to probably contribute a lot. Not too worried about Southampton's defense for Lukaku, which I think I just said was Stoke. Whoops. My util, Jordan Ibe. You like him. I like him this week. He did play a lot of minutes midweek. Came on as a sub last week. Got 2 assists. At this price range, you're just looking for any benefit. If he even plays just 20 minutes, he can kind of transform things for that Watford attack. And we weren't really big fans of that matchup to begin with. I already mentioned Everton's weakness on the wing, so I'm considering he'd come in on that flank. Would all of a sudden become more interesting as well. We've passed the 30-minute mark, so we're just going to get out of here pretty quickly. Be sure to check out VIP-bet.com. If you like these videos, be sure to comment or like or subscribe or follow or all those fancy YouTube things, which is, of course, where we're streaming. You can find Rob at Rob Langevin. That's not true. He's at FBL_MNOP. You can find me at Kevroff. Best of luck to your teams this week, and we'll catch you next time.